I'm going to tell you a story that's been clawing at me for years. A story I've carried like a stone in my chest, heavy and cold. It's about my brother, Devin, and the night everything changed. The night he died at 15, though no one seemed to notice. I'm telling it from my own eyes, my own heart, because I was there and I saw what they didn't. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I need to let this out, to make sense of it, to lay it bare. It's a long story, and it's not easy, but it's true. At least it's true to me. So please stay with me. Let me take you back to that night, to the house where it all began, and maybe you'll feel the same chill I did, the same dread that's never left me since that IT was late, the kind of late where the world feels too quiet, like it's holding its breath. I was 14, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard the commotion downstairs. My room was at the end of the hall, tucked away from the rest of the house, but the sound carried sharp, urgent voices cutting through the stillness. I sat up, heart already racing, and crept to my door, cracking it open just enough to listen. Mom's voice was high and frantic, words tumbling over each other like they couldn't keep up with her fear. Dad's was lower, steadier, but strained, like he was trying to hold everything together. I couldn't make out what they were saying at first, but then I heard Devin's name, sharp and clear, like a blade slicing through the air. I slipped out into the hallway, barefoot, the hardwood cold against my feet. The light from the living room spilled up the stairs, and I saw them. Dad carrying Devin, his body limp, arms dangling like they were made of something softer than bone. Devin's head lolled against Dad's shoulder, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, slick with sweat. Mom was right behind them, clutching her phone, her face pale as she muttered prayers under her breath, words I couldn't quite catch but felt like they were meant to ward off something terrible. They didn't see me standing there, frozen at the top of the stairs, watching as Dad carry my brother out the front door into the night. The car engine roared to life outside, and then they were gone. I stood there for what felt like forever, the house too quiet now, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. I didn't know what had happened, but I knew it was bad. Devin had been struggling for a while, pills, mostly stuff he got from kids at school, or worse, from places I didn't even want to think about. He'd always been the wild one, the one who laughed too loud, who pushed boundaries just to see them break. But lately, he'd been different, quieter, distant, like something inside him was unraveling. I'd seen it, but I didn't know how to say it, didn't know how to make Mom or Dad see it too. They were always so busy, always so tired, and Devin was good at hiding things when he wanted to. Morning came, gray and heavy, the kind of day that feels like it's already given up. I found Mom in the kitchen, staring at her coffee like it held answers. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling as she gripped the mug. I asked her where Devin was, my voice small, afraid of the answer. She looked at me, but it was like she wasn't really seeing me. He just needed to go somewhere, she said, her voice thin, like it might snap if you touched it. This is a good thing. It means he's taking it seriously. I didn't understand. Where did he go? I pressed, my stomach twisting. She didn't answer. Neither did Dad when I asked him later, his eyes fixed on the TV. Oh, I could tell he wasn't watching it. They were both acting like everything was fine, like Devin had just gone on a trip or something, but I knew better. I'd seen him last night, limp and lifeless in Dad's arms. People don't get carried out like that when everything's fine. That afternoon, the front door creaked open, and there he was, Devin, just standing there in the same clothes he'd been wearing the night before. Faded jeans, a black hoodie, sneakers with the laces untied. No suitcase, no bag, nothing to show where he'd been. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed, but he moved like nothing had happened, like he hadn't scared us all to death. Mom rushed over, her face a mix of relief and confusion, and hugged him so tight I thought she might break him. "Where were you?" she asked, her voice soft but insistent. He shrugged. That same lazy shrug he always gave when he didn't want to talk. "Around," he said, and that was it. No explanation, no apology. Just around. Dad didn't say much either, just clapped Devin on the shoulder and muttered something about being glad he was home. They didn't push him for answers, didn't demand to know where he'd been or why he'd left or how he'd gotten back. They were just so relieved he was there, standing in our living room, that they let it go. They acted like it was enough, like his presence erased the fear, the questions the night before. But it wasn't enough for me. Something was wrong. I could feel it like a splinter under my skin, sharp and impossible to ignore. Devin wasn't the same. He looked like my brother, sounded like him, moved like him, but there was something off, something I couldn't name. His eyes didn't meet mine the way they used to. His smile, when he bothered to show it, felt like it belonged to someone else. I kept watching him, waiting for him to slip, to say something that would explain what I was feeling, but he didn't. He just went back to his routine, school, his room, the occasional grunt when Mom asked him a question. Everyone else seemed to accept it, to believe he was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't Devin. Not really. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet again, the kind of quiet that makes you hear things that aren't there. Or maybe they were. Around midnight, I heard a soft creak in the hallway, the kind of sound you only notice when you're already on edge. I slipped out of bed and peered out my door, just in time to see Devin crouched by the hallway closet, rummaging through old boxes we hadn't touched in years. He was moving carefully, like he didn't want to be caught, pulling out dusty photo albums and stacks of papers, letting them spill onto the floor. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. He jumped, his head snapping up, and for a second his eyes were wide, wild like a cornered animal's. "Sorry," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to. I was just looking." "Looking for what?" I wanted to ask, but he was already shoving the papers back into the box, closing it with a soft thud. He stood, brushing his hands on his jeans, and slipped past me without another word, disappearing into his room. I stood there, staring at the half-open closet, my heart pounding. What was he looking for? Why was he sneaking around in the middle of the night? I wanted to follow him, to demand answers, but something stopped me. Fear, maybe, or the sinking feeling that I wouldn't like what I found. The next day, Mom caught me staring at Devin across the breakfast table, my eyes narrowed, my jaw tight. She pulled me aside after he left for school, her hand gentle on my arm, but her voice firm. "You don't have to make this harder," she said. "We're doing our best. He's still your brother." I wanted to scream. "He's not," I wanted to say. "He's not Devin." But I didn't. I just nodded because what else could I do? They didn't see it. They didn't want to see it. They wanted their son back. And this version of Devin was close enough for them. But not for me. I couldn't pretend, couldn't ignore the way my skin prickled when he was near, the way his presence felt like a shadow that didn't quite fit. Days turned into weeks, and I stopped talking about it. Stopped asking questions. Stopped trying to make them see. It was easier to stay quiet, to let them have their fragile peace. But I couldn't stop watching him. I noticed the little things, the way he avoided mirrors, the way he never laughed anymore, the way he moved through the house like he was learning it for the first time. I started keeping a notebook, jotting down every strange thing he did, every moment that felt wrong. It was my secret, my way of holding on to the truth when everyone else seemed to have forgotten it. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I heard him again, those careful, quiet steps on the stairs, moving like he didn't want to wake anyone. My heart was pounding, but I had to know. I had to see what he was doing, where he was going. I slipped out of bed, pulling on a hoodie, and followed him, keeping my distance. The house was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the street lamp outside, filtering through the windows. Devin moved like he belonged in the shadows, his steps silent, deliberate. I held my breath, staying just far enough behind to avoid being seen, that he went downstairs, past the living room, past the kitchen, to the basement door. My stomach dropped. We hadn't gone down there in years, not since Dad turned the basement into storage after the last big storm flooded it. The little room at the back, the one with the heavy door, had been locked for as long as I could remember. But Devin didn't hesitate. He opened the door, the hinges creaking softly, and disappeared inside. That I waited, counting to 10, then 20, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't want to follow him, didn't want to know what was down there, but I had to. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I crept down the stairs, the air growing colder with each step, the smell of damp concrete and dust filling my nose. The basement was dark, the only light coming from a faint glow at the far end, where the door to the little room stood slightly ajar. That I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and pushed the door open. That it was cold inside. colder than it should have been. The air was thick with dust, the kind that clings to your skin and makes you want to cough. The room was small, cramped, filled with boxes and old furniture we'd forgotten about. My eyes scanned the space, looking for Devin, for some sign of what he was doing. And then I saw him in the corner against the wall. He was curled up, his knees pulled to his chest, his head resting on his arms. At first, I thought he was asleep, but something was wrong. His skin was too pale, almost gray, like it hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. His clothes were stained, tattered, not the clean hoodie and jeans he'd been wearing upstairs. His mouth was slightly open, his lips dry and cracked. I took a step closer, my breath catching in my throat, and that's when I knew he was dead. Not just unconscious, not just sleeping. Dead. His chest wasn't moving. His eyes were half open, staring at nothing. The air around him felt wrong, heavy, like it was pressing down on me. I couldn't look at him anymore, couldn't bear the sight of my brother, my real brother, lying there forgotten, while something else walked around upstairs wearing his face, and I stumbled back, my legs shaking, and turned to run. But as I reached the door, I heard it, the soft, deliberate click of the latch closing. I froze, a chill racing through me, colder than the room itself. I lunged for the door, pounding on it, kicking, screaming until my throat was raw. "Let me out!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the small space. "Mom! Dad! Somebody!" No one came. I don't know how long I was down there, hammering on the door, my fists bruised, my voice hoarse. Hours, maybe. It felt like days. I slumped to the floor, exhausted, tears streaming down my face. Upstairs, I could hear faint sounds, footsteps, voices, the normal hum of the house. My family was going about their day, oblivious, while I was trapped down here with Devin's body, with the truth no one wanted to face. And then I heard it. My own voice that was faint at first, muffled through the door, but unmistakable. It was me, or something that sounded like me, talking to Mom in the kitchen. Laughing even. The sound made my skin crawl, made my heart pound so hard I thought it would burst. I pressed my ear to the door, listening as I answered questions, made small talk, moved through the house like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't been locked in the basement. Like Devin hadn't died, that I spent hours trying to get out, banging on the door until my hands bled, screaming until my voice gave out. I tried to pry the door open with a rusty screwdriver I found in a box, but it wouldn't budge. I searched the room for another way out, but there was nothing, just concrete walls, a single flickering bulb, and Devin's body, still and silent in the corner. I couldn't look at him, couldn't think about him, but his presence was everywhere, heavy and inescapable. The second day, I was delirious, dehydrated, my mind fraying at the edges. I kept hearing my voice upstairs, living my life, while I was stuck down here, invisible. I started to wonder if I was losing it, if this was some kind of nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But the pain in my hands, the cold seeping into my bones, the smell of decay in the air, it was all too real. I don't know how I got out. One moment, I was slumped against the door, too weak to keep fighting, and the next, it was open, the latch undone like it had never been locked. I stumbled upstairs, blinking against the light, my body aching, my mind a fog. The house was quiet, empty. Mom and Dad were gone. Work? Maybe, or errands. But I was there, sitting at the kitchen table, eating a bowl of cereal, looking up at me with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Hey," it said in my voice. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at this thing that looked like me, sounded like me, but wasn't me. It tilted its head, studying me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something in its eyes, something knowing, something cruel. Then went back to eating, like I was nothing, like I didn't matter. I tried to tell Mom and Dad, try to make them see that something was wrong, that Devin was dead, that I wasn't me. But they didn't listen. They looked at me with pity, with worry, like I was the one who was broken. "You're stressed," Mom said, her voice gentle but firm. "It's been a hard few months. Maybe you should talk to someone." I stopped trying after that. What was the point? They didn't want to know the truth. They wanted their son, their daughter, their normal life. And these things, these imposters, gave them that. They were close enough, convincing enough, that no one questioned it. No one but me. That I don't know what they are, the things that took Devin's place, that took mine. I don't know where they came from or why they're here. All I know is that I'm alone now, the only one who sees it, the only one who remembers. I've thought about running, about leaving this house and never looking back. But where would I go? Who would believe me? And deep down, I'm afraid that if I leave, I'll lose the last piece of Devin, the real Devin, the one I found in that basement. So I stay. I watch them, these strangers wearing our faces, living our lives. I keep my notebook hidden, filled with every detail, every moment that proves they're not us. I don't know if anyone will ever read it, if anyone will ever care. But I have to keep going, have to hold on to the truth, even if it's just for me, because Devin died at 15. And I'm the only one who noticed.